Welcome to Humbly the Best Celtics podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, here with Mike and Joel, three diehard fans and friends breaking down each game throughout the season for you. The journey to Banner 18.
I'm humbly one of the best basketball players in the world.
Welcome back to another episode of Humbly the Best Celtics podcast. This is Brandon, Mike, and Joel here talking about the best team in basketball, maybe the best team we've ever seen. We'll find out come playoffs. The Boston Celtics. We're on quite a streak. 21 out of 23, I think it was, that we had won. Celtics were just out on an absolute tear. Then we fell apart late in Atlanta. Mike's concerned. Brandon's not. Joel's in the middle. We'll talk about that. But great run, obviously, from the Celtics. Had some big wins. Talking about beating the Suns twice, bouncing back from that Denver Cleveland loss, beating the Suns twice, and obviously Portland and Utah there on the road. And then obviously you take care of teams like Washington, Detroit. Those seems like games that could really be like gotcha games, but the Celtics took care of business in both of those games. And then we beat the Bucks because that's what we do. We don't fear the deer around here. And then take care of the Pistons again and Chicago on the road. But we head down to Atlanta last night and unfortunately blow a 30-point lead in the second half. Just fell apart. No Derek White to close it out in the fourth and save you. No Holiday, obviously out with a shoulder. But a little bit disappointing. Thought it was in the bag. And where's Jason Tatum? They just really blew that game. So, you know, some concern. Mike, what's your concerns?
Call a freaking timeout. Don't wait till your lead's completely gone before you call a timeout. This is basketball 101. Like every coach in every high school, college, pros, you call timeouts to stop runs. Like you drop a play, get an easy bucket, and then a lot of times, like Atlanta did last night, we called the timeout with three down, or finally when Atlanta was down three to us after coming back, we called timeout, immediately go on a 10-0 run. And then what does Atlanta do? Calls a timeout, then they go on a run. And right, that's just like it's why you call timeouts. And again, I understand Missoula is like, hey, I'm trying to prepare them and push through. I get that, but it's like, don't build bad habits in your team. Like there's things again, stop it. A lot of times, what if the guys are just tired, right? Like get them a rest, and you want to build that confidence and build that the just. I understand again, we have not a whole lot to play for at this point, but it's still I want to see us continue to build good habits. Same thing, end of the game. The way that game ended, our late game execution is really frustrating when it turns into ISO ball. Like, don't stop doing what made you a great team all year. Move the ball, make the right basketball play. Like that's always my frustration because again, we have two great guys that are great in ISO, but they're just in the crunch time that this is not. You want to find the best open shot. Trust the players that are out there that when you make that pass, you're to an open guy, he's going to make the shot. And I think we lose that trust when we get down to tight areas, and that is what makes me worried going into playoffs. If it's a tight game, I don't trust our late game execution. The 8 second, like again, there's little stuff that's just like frustrating, like Tatum walking the ball up, getting the 8 second call. Like those are the little things that I want to see cleaned up heading into playoffs. Let's start to build those good habits so that way we have confidence that we've been here, done that plenty of times in close games and won. We're fine when we're blowing teams out, but how do we do when those late game execution? That's what I want to see improved going forward and call a timeout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joel, you worried at all from that?
I mean, it's not. So my thing with the losses, like the way they stack up, like we always hear the same story afterwards. Like their late game execution is so bad. Their game execution is so bad. I don't think that's necessarily the fact. It's just when we lose, it's always the same way, right? So it's not that this is the habit. It's just that when we play losing basketball, this is what it looks like. It looks like taking too long to get into your actions. It take looks like a lot of settling for poor shots. And when they do that, they will lose. There's not times that this team doesn't get blown out. I think there's two double-digit losses on their uh on their tab from this year. So I'm less concerned about it being an issue in the playoffs. But if we're telling a story of how the season ends disappointing in a disappointing fashion, this is going to be why. It's because of the same bad things that we've said for years. But that being said, they do have the best net rating in the clutch of any team in the NBA. So I believe they're a plus 12, even after last night's game. So
Yeah.
the the fact that like that they're not a bad clutch team. They are a good clutch team. It's just when they lose, it looks really similar every time.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, right, we're talking 15 losses, and I don't count one of them D Wade. Like that wasn't real. I mean, against the Cavs, that
Well,
was
even that game, it's the same story, right? It's the taking too long and then settling for poor shots, and then
yeah.
the other team
I think
starts
this
hitting
the
threes and you're
difference is
missing.
big time when we like are waiting and dribbling the clock out, right? Our execution on those plays, they're horrible. Like when we roll within those first 8 seconds of the shot clock and move the ball and make a play, or Tatum drives like instantly, it's that split second. But as soon as we dribble at the clock, I mean, even Brown last night with that play, as soon as he just starts dribbling and you see the clock get to 10, it's like we know we're not getting a bucket, and it's a horrible feeling. At the end of the day, I'm not worried about the blown lead. Like it was the Hawks. You've already clinched first place. We're taking the foot off the pedal. You could say we shouldn't, but you should because you don't want to get hurt. We have stupid rotation that's never going to happen. And I'll get to what I think we really need to concentrate in a second. But I read this stat today: blown leads this season. Celtics have 14 of them. Denver has 18. OKC 18. Milwaukee 19. Minnesota 22. You're talking the top 5 teams in the NBA right there, and we have the least. In fourth quarter blown leads, Boston has 8. Denver 9, Milwaukee 9, OKC 6, and Minnesota 13. So I'm not too concerned about like a habit of the Celtics. I think this team's in it to win this year and has a way better mindset than years past. Someone said, I think Tatum and Brown the other day said, the team came in so many times just looking to playoffs, get to the playoffs. For now, they're looking at every game. Last night happened, is what it is. Jason Tatum's never starting a game again at point guard unless Holiday and White sit again during the regular season. I mean, it's just not we're not gonna see those rotations. But at the end of the day, it's like just don't get hurt and let's just get through these last 10 games. And I think the biggest thing that we've done a great job of on this team, moving away from last night's loss, is using these last even almost 20 games now to really get our bench players going, right? Like we're seeing Pritchard play at an unbelievable rate right now. We're seeing Cornette play great. Hauser, he dropped 20 plus threes in 3 games, combined, obviously. Hauser, CV, even getting some big minutes and playing well. But I think that is what's huge at this time of the year is just getting those guys minutes, getting to the playoffs and having those guys feeling good about themselves. Brown even said that the other night is going to be huge for the Celtics. To not have no bench, as people claim we don't have, but now you have guys that are dropping literally 20 points for us that are then going to be big role players for us in the playoffs is absolutely huge. Having them go into the playoffs and feeling good about themselves as they balled out in the last 20 games. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, they know how to turn it on. Holiday, White, even Al, they know how to turn it on come playoffs. But these guys, let them feel it. Hauser get that stroke going again. That's all I want to see. I don't want to see anyone get hurt. I want 5 more or 3 more wins to get to that 60 spot. I just feel good about that. I would like 865, but don't get greedy. At the end of the day, let's stay safe. Me and Joel were talking about before. I think Kristaps have seen a huge like decrease in his rebounds. I believe the team's fully behind him, saying don't be diving into there, stepping on an ankle, getting hurt. He's on a clear minutes restriction with the hamstring thing. It's just time to protect the players at this point.
I think part of like last night's game, like one thing it does highlight is how important Derek White is to this team, like to the level of execution on both
100%.
sides of the floor. Like he leads the team in expected wins. For players over 1,500 minutes, he's leads the team in their point differential on offense and on their point differential on defense. His effective field goal percent leads the team. Like all the obviously advanced stats, like love him, but the eye test shows it too. Like things just run smoother when he's running the team, which I mean, it's no slam on Tatum. He's just not that's not a role he's ever played in any point of his career in the NBA. Like a distributor, like it's just not what he does. It's not his skill set. So, but yeah, definitely we miss Derek White, and I miss watching him every night. I hate games he doesn't play.
I think
I'm
the
with
biggest thing that stood out to me over the last call it, we've lost 4 games in the last like 25, 26 games. And what I like about it last year going to the playoffs, we had no identity. This year I feel like we do. We're playing great defense and we're also the way
launching the three
the way
ball.
that our yeah, and the yeah, the way that but it's the way that we're getting our shots.
Yeah.
It's by great passing and great like it's everyone sacrificing right now to get like it is like again the way the Warriors built their team with just great offense, constant movement. I feel like is how our offense is right now. Where every guy, whoever's hot that night, they're feeding the ball to, but the ball never stops moving. Like I don't know how many times a game in our group message that where we were like, dude, ball movement is unbelievable. And like we just didn't have that last year. Everything was slow and it was very like a lot of one-on-one ball. And you do get that from time to time. And generally that's not a great game for us. But the game we're playing Celtics basketball, like the ball doesn't stop moving. Guys making hustle plays, the bench, improving. So I'm excited for our identity that we're forming, heading into the playoffs. I think that is what's going to carry us.
Yeah, I mean, this team just feels different, right? Like every year, we're like, any Celtics haters and say, "Oh, you guys say every year it's your year," but like this year, finally, like you always have those issues that we kind of just turn away from, the bench issues and, just late game execution even worse and different things like that every year. And this year, I just feel like everybody's, even Jalen, like you got guys like Jalen Brown having an unreal year. Kristaps Porzingis, last couple games, you look at his production's down, but obviously protecting him. But what he's able to do, and really, our 6 starters, what they're able to do come playoffs is going to be crazy. Come playoffs. Right now the Celtics are first off, the Celtics are 6 games up over the Denver Nuggets. Which is big. You're talking home court for the entire playoffs. You get first seed in the entire NBA. You got home court, obviously, for the playoffs, and that would be huge for the Celtics. I mean, home, we don't want to lose at Boston. Last couple years been a concern, but this year we've taken a really good job of taking care of home court. I don't think we've lost to an Eastern Conference team in the Garden in a year in the regular season. So obviously we're doing a great job with that. So at this point, 6 games up, I'd say it's pretty safe to say we're going to lock in that spot with 10 games left. But talk the East. I never worry about the West until we get there, because so much happens come playoffs. In the East, kind of what's your rankings right now of who you don't want to see in the playoffs? You'd say let's get rid of those. Who fears you the most come playoffs? Joel, you want to go first?
Mike can start.
Mike's starting.
I
Mike, are you
think like
ready?
as far as for the first round, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just like your top couple teams you don't want to see in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the
For
Heat,
you.
right? The Heat seem to just be they always were in the same situation every single year. They're the team that just knows how to win, but I feel like Butler doesn't really try to playoffs. He has some decent games, but there's a lot of times in the throughout the year he's got 15, 12 points in a game. And then come playoffs, they know how to turn it on. They're like that veteran team with a bunch of veterans and they have shooting, right? I think that's the other thing too, is like, and I think Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league that just knows how to get his team prepared for when it matters. So that's a team I think right off. Like they obviously gave us trouble, and I think it'd be interesting to see how Rozier. He's not really fit in there yet, but I'm wondering how he comes along with the last 12 games left of the season, and as their Heat are getting healthy. I think they've had a lot of players that are still out, so that'll be, I think, to me, that's the number one team. Like in the first round, other round, I think the Knicks are the same way. I think the Knicks have a lot of injuries. I think the Cavs, a lot of teams have had injuries this year. So I think it's a little bit of fool's gold. I hope the Celtics don't get caught up in. Because also we have a hugely been playing great ball, but I think a lot of teams have not been healthy all year. And I think getting those teams, a lot of them are like, look at the injury reports. A lot of them are a week or two out from being pretty healthy. So it'd be interesting to see if the Knicks, if they get Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson back, 2 key pieces to, I think they made the trades not too long ago. We were all looking at their roster like, hey, this could be a team to watch out for. And I think coming into playoffs, I think they'll be healthy and it'll be so I think the Heat and the Knicks are kind of the two that come to mind right off.
Okay. Joel?
I mean, call me crazy, but the Heat just don't scare me like they used to.
I'm with you, dude.
Yeah, who's to say Jimmy Butler's going to become Michael Jordan again in the playoffs? I just don't see that happening 2 years in a row. And then they're not going to have their All NBA performer, Caleb Martin, show up again, who's been back down to earth. I just don't trust that team's offense. Like they can defend like anybody, like better, as good as anyone in the NBA, but they cannot score for the life of them. And then when they have Hero out there, their defense sucks. So I don't know.
I'm with you because at the end of the day, like we have not seen it work with Terry Rozier there. Shocker. You got Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier. They're just ball dominant players. They just don't play well next to each other. Jimmy Butler's 34 years old. I mean, the story can't be every year he just turns it on in the playoffs. Like you're 34 years old at this point. About to be 35. Like it's just kind of crazy to me. To think that. But if there's any year, and I hope this doesn't stab me here, but like there's any year I feel like I haven't been really that nervous about the Heat in a 7-game series is this year. Like I just they had the players last year, injuries, Butler was out for a while, Lowry, all those guys, but it's just like I don't see how the Terry Rozier trade benefited them, and that was the piece they needed.
Yeah, and then Hawkes hasn't been who he was the first 2 months of the season.
Yep.
It's just I don't know. I think they're talent deprived there, and they've displayed an inability to stop Kristaps Porzingis. And it's been a hard matchup for them. Honestly, I think you have to say the Bucks just because the top end talent is unmatched in the East. You have Damian Lillard, who we all know he's had an up and down season, but there have been peaks there. And then Giannis, who's arguably the best player in the Eastern Conference, which is, I said arguably.
I don't think it's an argument. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, then Giannis.
Okay.
White.
Arguably, if you're not Homer. I it's got to be the Bucks. I mean, the one thing that gives you a little bit of like relief is Doc Rivers is their head coach, so that's kind of like gives you a little bit of a
Yeah.
sigh. But on a serious note, like they do not have wings that can really stay in front of Jalen and Jason, but they do have firepower on the offensive end that they can really put up a lot of points. Like Middleton's looking better than he has in 18 months, and Giannis is Giannis. So I think you have to say the Bucks, but one that does make me crazy, just kind of, or they call me crazy, but just seeing it lurking there at the play-in if they get the 8th seed and
Dude,
they win
you're gonna steal who I was saving.
the
Pacers.
no, the
Oh,
Pacers can't talk about can't defend. The 76ers, they get a healthy Joel Embiid back
Joel Embiid ain't
and
coming
come
back.
back.
Breaking here, I'm like Wojnarowski.
I
They
did I
protect your
did
big man. He's the MVP.
We
I
have
did
no one
protect
number like Joel Embiid
I
for
mean
years. Like he's to me like that's the least guy I'm worried about because
Yeah, I mean they can't beat us.
that's when we pull Horford out of the closet and are like, go after him.
Here, mine is definitely the Bucks right now. I'd say is like, let me be clear. I don't see any team beating the Celtics in a best of 7 series. If we play our game, if we're fully healthy, like how is a team going to catch? You can catch us on an off night, but beating us 4 times out of 7, I just don't see a team doing that. With the teams that we're looking at, right? You got the Bucks is going to be who I fear the most, right? They're second seed. They struggle on the road. They're 17 and 18 on the road. They're not a good road team. We're holding home court advantage. To Joel's point, they have no wings that can guard. Thing that makes me nervous with them is I really feel like Dame and Giannis have really come up with a great partnership, and Brooke with the pick and roll. And we know we suck at guarding the pick and roll because for some reason we only drop set. Like we have no other option. That's all we're allowed to do for some reason. And Dame is going to eat that up a lot. Obviously, yeah, they're the Bucks, right? I mean, it's Giannis, Dame Lillard, playoffs. They make me nervous. I'd say the second for me is going to be the Knicks. Same thing with Mike. They're going to be healthy. The Garden is just not an easy place to play, especially come playoffs. If you catch them like second round, New York's feeling the buzz at that point. Then that's really where we'd probably see them. Makes me a little nervous. It's Madison Square Garden, but we've obviously taken care of business against them like 4 times already, and then a 5th game coming up. Probably no stars playing.
the other thing is like they're going to be healthy. I don't think is a guarantee. Like
For
of
sure.
anyone,
Coach.
yeah, of anyone though, like Julius Randle is still a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts teams' health,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and on
Mitchell
top of that,
Robinson's has been out for months. What's he
yeah,
gonna do? Like, but you got guys like, Dante DiVincenzo's flaming hot right now. You got Isaiah Hartenstein playing well. So they got a lot of good players right now. And then for some reason, I'm just not bothered by Cleveland, even though they just beat us. D Wade was fake, but I'm just really not bothered by them. I don't think JB Bickerstaff's a good coach at all. The only team that like kind of makes me nervous, I feel like it's like a catch-you team, is the Pacers. The Pacers and what we saw out of them, I know Halliburton's had his struggles, but it's like, hey, the guy pops off out of that. Like what we saw from them in the play-in tournament of like young kids that they have, and like that arena was going absolutely bonkers. Like that was insane. No, obviously they don't bring that. They're not like a road traveling team. They ain't bringing that to the Garden. But I just feel like it's just like kind of like a rough place to play. They got a bunch of dogs, like a bunch of kids that have just kind of been tossed to the side and thrown on that Pacers team. For some reason, like Neesmith like hates our guts. So like it's kind of crazy, but I don't want to play the Pacers. Like I would literally rather play the Magic or the Cavs before I'd play the Pacers.
TJ
Just 'cause I don't
McConnell
want
like
to play
just
them at home.
shreds us. I don't know what it is. TJ
Who?
McConnell has
Oh,
TJ
TJ
McConnell
McConnell. Yeah, like they just got
just
these
happy,
dogs,
like
dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how Pascal Siakam plays come playoffs.
Yeah.
He's another guy that I thought was a pretty good pickup that they had.
Yeah.
I think the guys they really lost though that kind of I thought was really good for them was that guy off the bench, Benedict Mathurin,
Yeah.
who's a pure shooter
Matt
and up for the year.
Mathurin.
Yeah.
What is it?
Mathurin.
Mathurin? Or yeah, like he's out for the year, and I think that's a big loss.
Yeah,
'Cause
he's a
played
big loss for
really
them.
well against us.
Yeah, and Halliburton's been trash. Like he's in a complete
Yeah,
drought
not
right
good.
now. But
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know. What we saw at that field house getting playing, I mean, that was insane. I mean, they won them the game and just a bunch of young kids. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping the Celtics right now, you're looking Miami and Sixers obviously are going to play. Winner of that game is going to probably play the Bucks unless the Bucks collapse. And then we're playing obviously winner of Bulls Hawks will play the loser of Heat Sixers to play us. So it'll be interesting. I don't think it's far fetched to think based on where Embiid is at. If the Heat win and they go play the Bucks first round, would be pretty interesting. But then you're talking Celtics. You could be playing the Hawks, the Bulls. I think out of those or the Sixers, and I think out of the three of those, I'd love to play the Bulls.
Yeah.
I
Beat
just
him by
don't think they,
30 every
I
night.
don't think they stand any chance against the Celtics. The Hawks is just for some reason like whatever, but we'll see what we get out of the Celtics Thursday. Thursday, you're sitting down in Atlanta, living in that loss. I don't know how bothered the team is by it. Porzingis was interviewed last night and was like, "Yeah, we got to be better," and he was like smiling from ear to ear like he has the entire time since he's got to Boston. So I'm not sure how bothered they are by the loss. But back in the building in Atlanta on Thursday to play the Hawks again. Hopefully, take care of business. We'll see you guys next week.